view of just things going on around us. And my message is that it's very important to recognize that everybody's struggle against imperialism is really one struggle. It's not divided, it's not scattered. We're here in the tradition of the 1958 event when our ancestors declared that African liberation has to be total. But unfortunately, one aspect that seems to have kind of gotten lost is the role that women play. And women, I want you to be aware, play a very, very important role in that history. And no liberation will be total without women. So it's very important we don't leave bits of history out and think it's complete. Women have historically played an important role. We continue to play an important role. And we're going to play an important role going into the future, else we will not be free. So I want you to, before we start, before I ask our speakers to speak, I'd like you to look around the room. And I'm going to ask you to do two things. Number one, I don't want you to be disappointed because the crowd is small. Because what you're looking at are people who are dedicated and people who are committed and people who want to do more and want to know more. So thank you for being here. And also as you look around the room, I want you to just acknowledge a person, not necessarily a person sitting next to you that might be in your household or your friend that you came in the car with, but somebody that you probably never saw before. And I want you to acknowledge that person as your comrade. Okay, this is the person that is here and willing to struggle along with you. So just look and find somebody. And even though you don't know each other, and you may not know each other, but you know one thing, this is another comrade. This is another person that is willing to do what you're here to do tonight. That's right. So this evening, I don't want to take up too much time because our speakers that we have are really informed and informative, and I'm going to let them do their talking. They are going to talk about women's role in revolution. We're really, really fortunate and thrilled to have with us Comrade Milan and Comrade Jacquie Luqman, both representing the Black Alliance for Peace. And even though, unlike the last panel, I was not asked to give questions for them to address directly, they are going to talk about what they know needs to be said. But I will take the liberty of asking them to please take at least a moment to address the issue of how we normalize the resistance that has to take place. Because right now, oppression is normalized in capitalist societies. We look around the world and see very horrible things being done to people. Governments, legitimate governments being overthrown, bombs being rained down on nations that have committed no crimes, and we're not outraged. So the question is, how do we normalize resistance? And I'm going to turn the discussion over to you. And you start? Are you the first? Okay, thank you.
Hello. Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Milan. I'm with Baltimore. I'm also on the Haiti Americas team. And yeah, hopefully I can answer that because resistance has always been normalized when there's been oppression. We have always repressed. We've always resisted. We've always fought against repression and oppression, and that is not something that is unique to right now. It's something that we've always done and will continue to do until we are free of oppression, and that includes all the different forms of oppression. So I'm prepared. I'm going to speak to them. So historically and presently, African women have always been present and active in their fight against oppression. So in Cuba, Carlota Lucumi led a revolt against her slaveholding oppressors in Matanza. In Jamaica, Queen Annie of the Maroons militantly led the Windward Maroons against British authorities. In South Africa, we have Winnie Mandela. She sustained the anti-apartheid movements for decades. She encouraged militant resistance against white supremacy, against the apartheid system. in the United States. We have women like Assata Shakur, women who were in the Black Liberation Army. They fought against the extractive colonial system as organizers, as strategists, as combatants. So this is a protracted struggle for liberation, and in this protracted struggle, it is our duty and it is our right to fight for freedom, and as Assata Shakur said, it is our duty to win. And to win, we have to be organized. African women all around the diaspora are still fighting, have fought, and will continue to fight against every form of oppression. And though we are sometimes viewed as collateral, we have always been integral to the struggle against oppression in all of its many forms. Under a white supremacist imperialist structure, African women in particular suffer from a triple oppression due to race, class, and gender. And I want to be very intentional with saying this is not to be confused with Western feminist views of patriarchy, right? This is something that addresses imperialism, it addresses colonialism, it addresses capitalism, and it does not isolate itself from them. I have a comrade who's also in the Haiti Americans team with me who said a feminist in Venezuela told her, Chavista told her, part of the issue for what they're struggling that people can do to help with Venezuela is that they can actually resist imperialism, right? Like the women that we need to free, quote unquote, are not going to be freed under imperialism. They're going to free themselves. We are going to free ourselves. And we cannot do that when we are under imperialist control. We cannot do that with capitalist control. And so we cannot afford to isolate or separate ourselves from the primary contradiction, which is imperialism. Women under the patriarchal conditions that we are in, that is amplified by capitalism, we are not only often relegated to unpaid roles such as caretaking, but also exploited as workers. So in Baltimore specifically, Africans of all genders are suffering from unemployment, suffering from low-wage work, but African women in particular here, again in Baltimore, make up 61% of the overall female workforce, but 71.1% of the low-wage workforce. So nationally, African women have an unemployment rate of 7.3%. That is nearly double that of white women. It's substantially higher than the general national unemployment average as well. Globally, African women continue to be super exploited. Our women are structurally isolated, exploited, and continuously extracted from. So we are often forced into these zones of environmental degradation and poison. We suffer disproportionately from high maternal mortality rates, from poor maternal health care, and our women are corralled into these areas and neighborhoods with little resources, high rates of poverty, and intensified militarization. So, as organizers, it is crucial that we create structures for African women to fruitfully participate in the liberatory work of revolution. This, again, does not mean opening the doors for African women to be included in this colonial project, like much of the Western Black feminist thought advocates for, but instead means the fight for the complete rejection and dismantling of the system that oppresses us. So Kamala Harris is not who we are trying to be. We do not want inclusion into this capitalist, this imperialist system, this genocidal system that has genocided our ancestors, our indigenous siblings' ancestors, our Palestinian siblings' ancestors, right? This is something that rejects that system of colonialism, rejects the system of imperialism, and it is a fight that is free of oppression and repression. So that means the continuous rejection and eventual destruction of the colonial relationship between the United States and its colonial sites of extraction and exploitation, not just here in the United States, but across the world. It also means creating avenues for participation within our organization. I also want to, in this part, talk again about our Demilitarized Baltimore campaign that President's referenced a little bit, because we are doing community defense coalition work in that. And that means that we do need the voices, the participation, and the support from the community. We are part of the community. We are going to create this coalition together. And so through this coalition, the participation of our women, our youth, and all oppressed peoples is of utmost importance. There's a pretty famous quote, many of us have probably heard it, by Thomas Sankara, that says there's no social revolution without the liberation of women. And in revolutionary mass organizations, we must assist women doing this movement work because our energies, our insights are necessary parts of liberation struggles. As women, we must collectively participate in revolutionary organizing. We must commit ourselves to revolutionary struggle. And we have many examples to look to. So, for example, Sierra Sanchez, she was the first woman to join the guerrilla army in Cuba. She fought in the Sierra Maestra. She supplied weapons to the army. She served as a messenger. This is the legacy that we continue. These are the shoulders that we stand on. Haiti Santa Maria, another Cuban revolutionary. She withstood the torture of her family members, including they brought her brother's eye to her, right? They were saying, you need to tell us all the information that you have so that your brother won't suffer anymore. And she refused. She said, if they didn't talk and you did all that to them, then why would I talk? This is the legacy that we have of women in revolutionary spaces. This is the legacy that we stand on. We have Layla Khalid, who valiantly defended her people and her country as a member of the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine. We have Mama Tingo. She was an Afro-Dominican campesina woman who was assassinated by a government put in place through a United States-backed coup, funded by the United States as well, for defending land that the government was attempting to take from her to use for wealthy businesses and corporations. So we have so many legacies that we should be continuing. Legacies that aren't these Western feminist ideals of what it means to be a revolutionary, what it means to be liberatory, what it means to fight for liberation. And we cannot get those two conflated or confused. When we have confusion about what our primary contradiction is, when we have confusion about what it means to be a woman in a revolutionary space, we have confusion about what it means to organize as a woman in a revolutionary organization, the enemies win, right? They win when we are chaotic, they win when we are not clear, they win when we are not disciplined in what we are communicating, what we are fighting for. And we are fighting for a world free of oppression, free of imperialism, which is the primary contradiction, free of capitalism, and imperialism is the highest form of capitalism. So we are fighting against all of these things, and we have to be very clear in that. As I stated, we don't have a shortage in women who've assisted with, continued, organized, or fought for revolution. So what we have to do continuously is to facilitate the participation of women in our revolutionary movements locally, nationally, and internationally. We have to continue to organize against the repression, oppression, and devastation caused and facilitated through imperialism, colonialism, and capitalism. As revolutionary movements persist and these struggles are won, women win, all oppressed people win. And then just to give some examples, Cuba, for example, still defending their revolution. They are still dealing with military threats from the West and from the United States. They're still dealing with a blockade. They are dealing with increased terror from the United States right now, especially involving oil. But despite all of this, they have one of the lowest maternal mortality rates in our Americas. If you look at the African women here, it is not the case, right? There are 50.3 deaths. There are 50.3 deaths of Black women here, African women, for every 100,000 lives, Black births. In Nicaragua, as a continuation of the Sandinista Revolution, it is now required in the Constitution, so the Constitution was amended to include that there be both a man and a woman co-president at all times. This is a reflection of the fight against patriarchy amidst a continuous struggle against imperialism. And this is what women in revolutionary spaces looks like. Again, it's not Kamala Harris. And so I just want to close by saying, as women, we will deliver ourselves from this layered oppression. We will organize. We will lead the charge of our emancipation from this white supremacist, imperialist, patriarchal system. We are on the shoulders of so many brilliant and brave and wonderful women who fought for their freedom. And as Assata Shakur said again, it's our duty to fight for that freedom. It is our duty to win. It is our duty to pass the torch to the generations that come after us and to use the information that the generations before us have learned. And as revolutionary Pan-Africanists, as women, as internationalists, it is our duty to organize, to resist, to fight for our collective freedom from imperialism, from Western hegemony, from patriarchy, from all other forms of oppression, because our people are being destabilized, they're being harmed, they're being killed, our communities are being completely dismantled and devastated. And so as women, it is on the shoulders of giants and on the shoulders of greatness that we stand, and we have to continue that legacy. I yield.
Thank you, and I'm not sure what I have to say that is of any use after that amazing response. But this is why I love organizing, and this is why I love my organization and the comrades that I'm in this organization with, particularly these young men and women who are picking up the baton of this struggle and carrying it forward.
Hear, hear.
The victories they win, the victories you win, I may not see. But I know that the work that you all are doing will grow that tree so that the shade covers all of you.
All right.
The tree that we planted, we know that you all will take care of this tree.
All right.
And the tree of liberation will grow because of you. That is an amazing thing for me, who has only been really doing serious organizing probably for 20 years. I'm 58 years old. I'm honored to be in a space where I have got to meet a lot of the women and men that I learned about in the organization. And I have learned so much just from being in the same space and kind of ear-jacking, because you're nervous about meeting some people and you don't want to introduce yourself and embarrass yourself because you don't feel like you measure up. So you just sit as close to them as you possibly can while they're having a conversation and you're trying to eavesdrop. Yes, I've done it several times to YouTube graffiti. And I have been blown away by the common sense assessment of the material conditions that are different from when they were in the struggle, when they were your age, that are different today, and why that matters. And the thing that I love to hear from them, particularly the men talking about the women, this is the thing that blew my mind. I had heard so much from a lot of people in organizing, and we know that this, by the way, is the other side of that polite conversation about, the gender issue and advancing the struggle of women in the revolution. This is the not polite conversation that you're, because I don't have time. I don't because I think, while I understand that in the context of imperialism, and as women, and particularly racialized women in the capitalist system, patriarchy means a particular evil thing for us in that society. But in organization, what I've noticed for myself, and I don't want to claim that I'm exceptionalizing any organization, but in my experience that I've had working with the AAPRP, the Black Alliance for Peace, as that organization has grown, and other serious organizers, what I've heard is this veneration of women organizers, of women in the struggle, of women on the battlefield that I didn't hear when I was learning about the history of that struggle. And I thought that was really weird. Like, okay, I learned all about the Black Panther Party and Mark Clark and Huey Newton and yes, learned about Angela Davis. Yes, learned about Claudia Jones, but I didn't learn about Claudia Jones until I learned about W.E.B. Du Bois, right? I didn't learn about Shirley Du Bois Graham until I learned about W.E.B. Du Bois, right? I didn't learn about Paul Robeson's wife until I learned about Paul Robeson. Do you understand? So yes, that these things exist. Yes, they happen. And we did it ourselves because we are indoctrinated by this capitalist imperialist system that relegates revolutionary people, but even subgroups of people within the target group of people to nothingness in order to erase the importance of the existence of those people. That's why the system pushes women into this triple oppression. That's why. It's not really because they see no value in our work. They know damn well they'd be dead without us.
Yeah.
They understand. I mean, where do y'all come from? Every single one of you. Out of the insides of women.
All right.
And I know that science can create a human being and but most of us are never. Most of us gonna get here the old-fashioned way. Ain't nobody coming for our DNA like that. You know this. So we understand that the role of something like patriarchy, and even racism, and even classism, all of these oppressive systems in a capitalist imperialist system has one goal, and that is to disappear the people from the equation who are the most impactful in challenging the issues that the system, because who knows better the exploitation of a capitalist system than the women who hold up half the sky. Right? And the interesting thing is that what I experienced in my organizational travels was not every single man, because yes, there are still some brothers running around who, yes, they need some help. Yes, they do. They're very, very old-fashioned. I was married to one of them. when he had his own little ideas about what I was supposed to do as a little woman. And, you know, we got married, and he's like, oh, I love her, and I don't want anything to happen to her, and I just need to protect her. And when I heard him say, you need to protect me. I'm 45 years old, I protected myself just fine before you came along. What you think? Right? But he also understood that, you know, he had that old-fashioned idea that I have to protect my wife, my woman, because people are going to come after me because they think she is weak. He didn't understand how insane I was. But he learned really quick. But I also learned that I had to give him his belief that he had to protect me because it made him feel good. It made him feel good. And it was like, okay, great. But we also understood that if anybody came after the other one, the problem was with the other one. And it didn't matter which one of us it was. So on an individual level, yes, I understand this desire that people have to want to protect the people they love in relationship, romantic, platonic, familial, whatever. But in revolution, that understanding has to stay at home where it belongs. Because I understand, you know, my husband wanting not to, like somebody told me a little bit earlier, not want to sleep next to somebody who killed somebody earlier that day. I need to be the only killer in the house. And I'm sitting there with my crazy self like, why can't I be a killer too? I don't understand why you have a problem with this. Because see, when it comes down to it, in the revolution, when they catch us in the street, nobody's going to ask me, so are you his wife? Oh, you're taking care of the kids? Okay, well, you can go home. No, we in the revolution, we all going to need to be killers. And I might mean that literally, but I might not. Just, you know, to cover ourselves. But see, all of these weird capitalist, imperialist misunderstandings and transmutations of relationship and family dynamics that are only imposed on colonized people because most of us come from societies that are not patriarchal, that are not dominated by male-only leadership, that are not intrinsically societies that push women into the margins and children into nothingness. They don't even exist. Other than the property of the men and the heads of the family, most of us didn't come from those kinds of societies. Many of our societies had leadership structures that were varied. They were communal, they were matriarchal, they were matrilineal, they were collective. They were not these male-dominated, the men are always in charge just because they have penises and the birthright and the family line gets passed down through the semen. That's not where a lot of us come from. There were some societies like that on the continent and in Near East, but not all. So this thinking, this breaking down of the intrinsic value of every member of the society as an equal and important contributor to the health and the safety and the well-being and the growth of that society had to be stripped from us. Because we did not grow up, we weren't developed, we weren't growing as societies into people who believed that one half of the population was less valuable than the other half just because of their biological parts were different. Europeans pretty much had that idea for the entire society. Not saying that idea didn't exist in others, but largely, that was a largely European understanding of a functional family unit in a successful capitalist society. Do you understand what I'm saying? So our models for building society for the betterment of humanity had to be replaced with the model of society that exists for the betterment and the growth of profit. And in a society like that, people don't matter. And the more we understand that in this type of society in which we live now, in which the only opinion that matters is the man's, the only rights that matter are the man's, and the only desires that matter are the man's, but only if he's white. We need to understand where our role is in that hierarchy, in that society, to understand why they are so afraid for us to be as equal under the law as they are. Because they know we change the whole world every time we get power. Because see, one thing women do, we don't waste time. We don't have time to waste time. Because we have so much to do. Yes, we hold up half the world. I don't know how men do it, but I tell you how women do it. Because see, women, you tell us something has to be done, most of us, especially African women. You tell us something needs to be done, and we can be in the middle of doing 13 other things. And our response is, oh, who needs it? When do they need it? Is it an emergency? Okay, you over here, you come finish this. Call so-and-so and make sure that they can pick this up. Call Uncle Ray and have him come pick the kids up from school. Tell Linda that I will be at her house at 6 o'clock after I stop by the grocery store and get her prescriptions that she needs. And then I need you to go. You know how it goes. Somehow we have all the bases covered that nobody else thinks about. Why come? Because we do hold up half the world. Because we do. And the other half of the world that we are usually holding up, while we're holding up a gun, see, people always think we're never armed. And this is the secret in most revolutions that I found was the most powerful. The men in a lot of these revolutions never broadcast, yeah, we got some bad sisters up in here. Oh, we got some bad sisters up in here. Oh, you think we scary? You wait. Never. But they knew that the women were among the first, just like you said, were among the first to sign up for the gun. Even as they understood that while their husbands, their brothers, their fathers were 24/7 committed to armed struggle. Yes, somebody has to take care of the kids. Somebody has to feed people. And it shouldn't always be women. It should not. But those women in those instances didn't shirk those responsibilities, because the kids do need to eat whether you want to feed them or not. We all need to eat whether you want to cook or not, so somebody's going to, now we can fight over who's going to do it. I don't have a problem with that. But it needs to be done. And for a lot of us, it needs to be done is the only thing we care about. If it needs to be done, if it's something that people who are in need to survive, then that's what we are going to do. We'll have all these other discussions about how come you didn't cook dinner this time after the need has been met. But I have not seen in my understanding or my study of revolutionary history a lot of instances where the men in these revolutionary movements were, most of them, the men on the front lines with the women. They were not, looking across at the woman with the gun like, why is she here? Trust me, that nobody's doing it. Nobody's doing that in the firefight. Nobody is looking at, the person that they would rather be in the kitchen making sandwiches, talking about, why don't you put down the gun and go in the kitchen and make my sandwich? No, because when you get shot at, you don't care who's next to you. And when you're fighting for your liberation, I believe that most of the men that we have learned about in these revolutions have always understood that they have never been in this revolution alone. But I think that most of them didn't see the need to make the point. It's not just us men, it's the women too. Because for many of them, that was kind of obvious. And I think that maybe that might have only been not obvious, maybe here. I don't know if that's true. That's just something that's floating around in my head. But I can't see. Now, I know that revolutionary organizations like the AAPRP and other long-term organizations did have these struggles about the place of women in the revolution, whether they knew what the word patriarchy meant or not. But there has never been a time in the history of African or any racialized and marginalized people organizing where the marginalized people in the organizing spaces didn't speak up for their own selves. So when these questions were always, I'm sure, a part of the struggle, because we're all colonized, all of us. Our Palestinian brothers and sisters are colonized because they've been colonized. So their minds have been colonized. Is that an insult? No. We know that's true because that's true of us. Just like our sister said, we got to colonize ourselves from this idea that everybody black is for us. We got to root for everybody black. As a black woman, I'm telling you, I'm not rooting for every black woman. Keisha Lance Bottoms can kiss the church. Sorry, Jesus. Do you understand? We also have to decolonize our thinking from who we are popularizing the resistance around and to. So we're not just we can't just have a conversation about we're struggling against the men and patriarchy. No, we're not. No, we're not. Some people are struggling against, they don't like being told what to do. That I'm just going to say that's it. And that's a whole other conversation for another town hall on another day. Or you can call me and we'll talk about it because it pisses me off. But, because honestly, if you got a job, you're getting told what to do. Mm-hmm. You're getting told what to do for a paycheck. Exactly. If you're living with your parents, I know you're getting told what to do. Because if you were living with me as my roommate, I would tell you what to do. Because it's my house. So I don't understand this whole, I don't like being told what to do. Keep living. The IRS will tell you what to do. You know what I mean? I don't get that. But that, like I said, is another conversation. I understand that imperialism creates these divisions to weaken us, to distract us, to get us focused on things that are not them. That's what this is. It's not that these other issues are not problems. Sure they are, but they are not the primary contradiction. I'm not saying that we don't need to deal with these issues of gender confusion about where women or femmes should be, or whether femmes and non-binary people should even be in the movements. I'm not saying that's not a conversation we should have. Absolutely, those are conversations we should have. But we need to understand that we are not at the moment in revolution where we can sit around and casually have these extended conversations about things that are not killing us right now. Because right now, what's killing us is imperialism. And this is not to say that these things are not causing serious problems in individual people's lives, but we need to understand where these issues come from and why they seem to be so prevalent now. Why have the relationship advice videos on YouTube proliferated again after I thought they disappeared? And now people are going on over and over again, all over again about the best way to have a relationship. Women need to submit. Where is the women need to submit crowd coming from? I thought we had this conversation 89 times. And these people are back on social media pushing the same ridiculous line. The women, you want to have a successful relationship, women need to submit. Why would that kind of programming be picking up steam now? As the United States and Israel bombed girls' schools, as they claim they're doing everything they're doing to liberate the women of Iran because of headscarves, but they're murdering Iranian, Syrian, Lebanese women, Palestinian women in Gaza, in the West Bank. Why are we seeing black celebrities like, what's her name? Denise, I can't remember her full name, but she says about Susan Sarandon, because, Susan Sarandon, big Gaza, and then really she's kind of turning into an anti-imperialist, I think. But because this black comedian, who is not funny, doesn't like Susan Sarandon because Susan Sarandon was a third-party voter and did not vote for Hillary Clinton. This black woman comedian says that she hopes that Susan Sarandon is treated even worse in Hollywood because she's been blackballed because of her support for Gaza. So this black woman comedian who can barely get any work or dog herself in Hollywood says about a woman who has been steadfast in her support for anti-imperialist action that she hopes she gets blackballed even worse, basically saying she can tolerate a little genocide, but she can't stand people saying that you shouldn't have voted for Hillary Clinton. Those are the kinds of women we don't need to be normalizing or popularizing the resistance to or around. We need to be popularizing the resistance against those kinds of women. Women in the revolutionary movement need to constantly be pointing out our sister traitors in liberal and not right-wing spaces, because they're obvious. But these liberals, and particularly the racialized ones, yes, it's our job to call out those women. Because you know when our brothers do it, you know what the response is going to be. Oh, well, they're just patriarchal. No, you are a tool of imperialism. And I'm going to tell you the same thing our brothers are going to tell you if it goes down easier. Great. So for me, popularizing the resistance is more, I think I'm looking at it more from a perspective of how do we popularize the resistance against the co-optation of this movement that we women, not that we must be involved in it, but that we've driven to this point. Because there is no revolution on the face of the planet that has ever gotten anywhere without the engagement of women. None. And if you ask the revolutionaries, yeah, some of them were a little backward, and we've had to deal with some of those people. But if you ask most of the revolutionaries, like I did the people who were involved in the revolution in Cuba, like I did the people in Venezuela, like I asked the people in China, and asked them, well, have you all had any problems with, what about women in the revolution? And they'll be the first to tell you, oh, this one, her, she, this one, and they got names and dates and pictures. Let me show you. We've always been involved in the revolution. The only reason we think we have to reconcile something is because we're indoctrinated by the people who tried to destroy our revolutions and take us out of them. So for me, popularizing the resistance is about us, African and racialized revolutionary women, learning our history to counter the narrative and the co-optation of our role in the struggle that the enemy wanted to take us out of, so that we can not only better resist their co-optation, but also so that we do not fall into the trap of the representation as power and having a bunch of black cops and bobs telling us that, locking up our kids for our protection is revolutionary. That's all I got. Thank you.
The analysis that you've given, I appreciate your fire. I appreciate that you've given us an understanding of your knowledge of the role that women have played throughout history, the importance of several women that you didn't know about, and that you came to learn about and came to understand why you didn't know about them, but also understanding what we're experiencing today and why. And what has to be centered. And as far as understanding the problem, yes, absolutely, imperialism has to be centered. As far as understanding the solution, communication has to be centered, education has to be centered, particularly political education. But also just the connection with one another has to be centered. So even though, you talked, and I appreciate, your worldwide expression of the role of women and the role of revolution. We may not know our comrades in Palestine. We may not know our comrades in Cuba. We may not know our comrades in Haiti. We may speak different languages. We may have different histories and different traditions and different cultures. But the thing that binds us is our resistance and our struggle against injustice. And we have to do a better job reaching out to one another, especially to women, especially to our sisters. My husband, Jacquie, who's sitting here, listens to the radio, and sometimes I say, why are you listening to that show? And he said, well, I'm learning things, and especially I'm learning things that are of interest to our people, and to the people in general. And it gives me ideas about things, conversations that need to be had. So,
be in the movements. I'm not saying that's not